Okay, I'm not sure this one is going to work, but I'm looking at an approach ridge that is north of the approach ridge for the mini Matterhorn that I did last time. This would be an approach ridge to the Wilson Ridge. We're in Lovell Canyon, outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, between Las Vegas and Pahrump. This is Lovell Canyon Road. There's the Beast. That's going north. There's the South High Point. South High Point on Wilson Ridge. And this basically would be an approach ridge to the Wilson Ridge from Lovell Canyon Road that is between that South High Point and Rocky Gap Road, about a mile and a half, 2 miles down in this direction on Lovell Canyon Road. So the big question is, will this lead up to the Wilson Ridge? And you can see a few high points. We'll hit that high point first, then hit this high point, and then just look around and see if this is indeed the ridge we saw on the map that leads up to the Wilson Ridge. Once we get up there, we'll see where we're going to go from there. Major bush weaving down here till we get to the center of this ridge. The reason I'm doing this is that if we can turn this into an approach ridge for the Wilson Ridge, there's a chance that we could make that switchback spring south loop, meaning that we ascend to the Wilson Ridge, turn north, and then descend, find a place to descend to Rocky Gap Road in the Red Rock Canyon area. Now, the big if is, are we going to be able to weave our way through all the brush here and find a nice smooth approach on this ridge? And you can see there's a lot of brush, but there are openings. As approach ridges go, so far this isn't so bad. There are always openings along the way, as you can see, wide open here. And I believe I'm looking at a neighboring approach ridge that would lead up to that mini Matterhorn Pinnacle that I took earlier. So still heading up toward the next high point so I can see where I am, but if I gauge things right, I'm on the correct approach ridge to land on the Wilson Ridge north of that mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And just to give you a 360, as I mentioned, there's the approach ridge to the south. And here we're looking across Lovell Canyon. Interesting little canyons over there and ridges. And Lovell Canyon Road. That's where we started, and it's only been about 10 minutes or so. So we've gained a lot of altitude. We've got about 2,000 feet more. Hopefully this will be, well, this should be, the brush should be thinning out as we ascend further. So let's just see what things look like on this ridge. And what do you know? There is the beast. Let's see if we can nail it. the beast down on Lovell Canyon Road, and other landmarks. There's the beginning of Sexton Ridge. Take a ride on that ridge and you will end up at Griffith Peak, which we can't see right now. And then we'll pan across Lovell Canyon. You can see we're gaining altitude very quickly. And there is the neighboring ridge to the south. And I believe this connects to the ridge that we took to the mini Matterhorn Summit. So we're on a northern ridge, and we're going to hit the Wilson Ridge north of the mini Matterhorn Summit by a couple thousand feet. Still weaving through the forest here, and very open. The ground is loose. I think it's from all the rain last summer that it definitely looks like it's all the gravel and debris that's washed down from above during all those rains. But let's continue on. This is going very well. We just need to find out where we are once we hit a high point. We're just about to top that first high point and see a few more landmarks here. There you see Harris Mountain and Griffith Peak. Harris Mountain on the right. Then we'll pan over to Griffith Peak. And Griffith Peak sits on the summit of Sexton Ridge. We'll pan up the Sexton Ridge to Griffith Peak. And that's the main ridge on the west side of Lovell Canyon, upper Lovell Canyon. And then Wilson Ridge heads up to Harris Mountain. We'll pan across the Wilson Ridge up to Harris Mountain. That's on the east side, the ridge on the east side of Lovell Canyon. There you can see upper Lovell Canyon below the two peaks. And then, by the way, here's the Torino Ranch. That's another landmark. A landmark we use to find our way around the area. And then just to finish panning, there's the west side of Lovell Canyon. The mid canyon. And guess what? There is the beast on Lovell Canyon Road. So this ridge is a fairly rapid ridge with a lot of openings, and we've achieved this point. You can see the height that we've achieved by the picture of the beast down there. We achieved this point in about 15 minutes. So things are looking good. Hopefully this will open up even more as we continue to ascend. And on these approach ridges that are very seldom, if ever, traveled, you find some interesting things. Here, looks like a branch, but it's actually the horn, part of the horn of an antelope. This ridge is still very much in formation in that process. And here you can see chunks of composite rock. And this is rock that was washed down from above and solidified into something that looks kind of like cement. And you can see on the surface here, those rocks having been washed down, eventually they're going to solidify and turn into that composite cement rock. Okay, still weaving our way through the ridge, and it's been pretty easy. Always an opening to the next section without plowing through any brush or trees. So looking very good. Our next high point is up there, and the question is will this ridge circle around and head up in that direction? We're going to find out. Well, so far it looks like this ridge line is circling around to that next high point. No promises yet, but it looks like it's heading in that direction. And then quick 360. There we're looking down into Lovell Canyon. I'll trace Lovell Canyon from the Torino Ranch up to the saddle between Harris Mountain and Griffith Peak. And there you have it, continuing the 360-degree circuit here. Looking down the approach ridge that we've been ascending. Fairly open approach ridge, not bad at all. As approach ridges go, there is some brush that we've had to plow, well, not really plow through, but just weave through. It's been pretty tame. And there's the next high point. And by the way, there are absolutely no signs of trails or human passage on this approach ridge so far. That makes it different from the approach ridge just south that we've ascended before, where we found a trail that would appear and disappear, and a campsite that almost looked like some kind of ancient site due to the extensive rock work. But let's head up to this high point, see what we can find. And what I referred to as a historic campsite, potentially, due to the stonework. Up on that hill, one ridge south of the ridge we are on now. There's that approach ridge just south that heads up to mini Matterhorn Pinnacle Summit. And wow, it does look like we're going to hit this high point up ahead, which is nice. And also, it looks like one could actually find a more gradual approach from Lovell Canyon Road on this ridge just north of the ridge we're on, that doesn't circle around quite so much, and it may be a little more direct and even more gradual. And I would almost guess that there might be some old trails on that ridge. We'll find out when we get up to the high point. This is a kind of side ridge, Now, it's the third weekend in October, and here you can see the prickly pear cactus. That's the fruit of the prickly pear. So yeah, if you're up here at this time, you probably have to cook it. I don't know. I guess you could Google it and find out exactly how to prepare prickly pear. I know that jelly has been made out of it. It's pretty popular. Anyway, let's continue on up. And just a quick note, if you see divots like this up in the mountains where an area has been, it's almost like it's been smoothed out, which is actually what happened. That's where an animal has slept, spent the night. Okay, let's continue on upward. Okay, continuing to ascend. Wow, look at the view that's opened up here. You can see a good portion of that approach ridge just south that leads to what we call Mini Matterhorn Summit, or Mini Matterhorn Pinnacle, actually. There's that approach ridge just south. There you can look on the opposite side of Lovell Canyon. And, okay, in the category of where did I park? You can see the beast from here, actually. There's the beast down on Lovell Canyon Road. And there is a little loop on the east side of Lovell Canyon Road that's just below the CC Spring turnoff, which is a new turnoff I discovered. It's unpaved, and I'm going to trace the way up that turnoff. It goes to a group camp, evidently. So it would be down here and then ascending up this canyon, a little canyon meadow. There you can see a part of that little road, and it heads up to a group camp on the west side of Lovell Canyon. Very interesting. And then just to give a 360, soon we'll be at this next summit, which is going to give us an idea where the Wilson Ridge is. We'll be able to see the Wilson Ridge summit and how this ridge might approach that summit or not. There's the ridge south again, leading down. And there is the Nopa Range in the dim distance. So there you have it, a lot of familiar landmarks. Speaking of which, there over the ridge in the foreground is my landmark ridge, or landmark bluff, that I can see from way up in the Mount Charleston wilderness at the top of Lovell Canyon. And on all these approach ridges, by the way, just to reiterate what I've said on other videos, the Wilson Ridge is really accessed through a series. There's a lot of approach ridges. One of the challenges is that by the time you ascend the 2,500 to 3,000 feet to get up to the Wilson Ridge from Lovell Canyon Road, you're about ready to turn around, at least me. And yet one thing I would say is that these approach ridges offer a whole lot of options in terms of if you do traverse the Wilson Ridge, provided we make it. We could traverse north or south and find another approach ridge back down to Lovell Canyon Road. And if we hit a home run on this one, or maybe a subsequent adventure, we'd go over the Wilson Ridge and down into Red Rock Canyon, landing on Rocky Gap Road near the Switchback Spring area. But that's pretty ambitious and maybe not on an initial exploration here on untried ridges. Time to check in again. We're looking at the ridge that leads to mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And there you can see down the ridge, it's the ridge just south of the ridge we are on. There is that area where we found last time what looks like a historic campsite. Not sure, but on that little mound there was some stonework that looked far more sophisticated than something that campers would create. And there's the landmark bluff. Let's trace our way up that ridge just south. That would be the mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And then I'm going to go ahead and call this one the Twin Pinnacle, or Twin Matterhorn Pinnacle. Could be North Twin. I don't know. Figure it out. But you can see the two summits there on the Wilson Ridge. And then the ridge continues in this direction. And we're continuing upward. And we're within about 1,000 feet of summiting the Wilson Ridge. So let's continue on up this area. And here's the view north. There's the Wilson Ridge southern high point. You can find this on Las Vegas area trails. And then down in this direction is the Torino Ranch. And of course, up Lovell Canyon to up Wilson Ridge to Harris Mountain. Across over to Griffith Peak and then down Sexton Ridge. And there's the large view of everything. Let's take a view of upper Lovell Canyon. There you have it. And then there we are to the west. west side of Lovell Canyon. And remember I mentioned that road to CC Spring. The road to CC Spring Group Camp, which may be, if I was to put a group camp somewhere, it would be in the trees down there. So there you have it, and here we are on this approach ridge. And this is actually the last most direct approach ridge north to the Wilson Ridge. Of course, you could do the southern high point, which is the next one north, but I tell you, that's quite a brush-choked, complicated approach ridge. Okay, let's continue on up. We got a high point just ahead. My question is always, am I the first person ever to be on this ridge? And here it looks like there's a little shelter, or the remains of a little shelter from the wind. And indeed, the wind is blowing in such a way that if you were on the opposite side of this little shelter and it was built up a little bit more, you would be saved from the wind. And then to really seal the deal here, here's a little fire ring. So obviously somebody has been on this ridge. The next high point is up there. And so we're going to continue on, and when we get to that high point, we'll be seeing the Wilson Ridge. That may be on the Wilson Ridge for all we know. And looking in this direction to the, you see two high points. To the right is that mini Matterhorn Pinnacle, and to the left, let's just call that the Twin Pinnacle, North Twin. And then there's the ridge heading downward. We've taken that before, and then over to the landmark bluff in Lovell Canyon. Let's see, yeah, there we go. Not the best lighting. And then there's the base of Lovell Canyon, Lovell Canyon Road down there. So again, here's where we are. Pretty much abandoned ridge, or very isolated ridge, desolate. So let's head on up to the next high point, see what we can see. I think we'll be seeing the connection with the Wilson Ridge up from up there. I can't help but think that more level places like this on the ridge might have been places where people camped out for the winter, maybe Native Americans, I don't know, but yeah, it looks like a good place if you were staying down in Red Rock Canyon during the Summer, well, let's see. During the winter, you might come up here during the summer to cool down. I think I said during the winter earlier. This looks like a good summer location. It's 90 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley at this point, and it's fairly comfortable, maybe a little on the warm end up here. Let's continue on up to this next high point. Possibly another dwelling area here. That could have been a fire enclosure. We don't know. Would have had a great view. And then you could continue easily on upward. So yeah, I'm seeing a number of places on this approach ridge that could have been summer dwelling areas for Native Americans escaping Red Rock Canyon and Lovell Canyon below and the high summer temperatures down there. And maybe they'd migrate down to the canyons during the winter, colder months. But yeah, these ridges are full of wonderful spots to camp and to live. And there's evidence on a number of these ridges that somebody has created camping areas or dwelling areas. Okay, let's continue on up. More evidence of humans on this isolated ridge. Here we have a cairn. And you can see in the next high point, and to the right of that is the Wilson Ridge. The two pinnacles, mini Matterhorn on the right and North Twin on the left. And then the approach ridge. Let's see if I can turn here. I am on boulders right now. Okay, yeah. And a lot of places up here. A lot of places that one could camp or spend the summer, get away from the heat. And I've seen those kinds of places all along this ridge and the ridge just south. And by the way, this would be the third ridge north of Rocky Gap Road. There's one that parallels Rocky Gap Road, and then there's this one we're looking at in the foreground. So we're on the third ridge actually. Now you're looking down that ridge, down to Lovell Canyon. I bet I could see the beast down there if I looked hard enough, but not doing it right now. And then looking over to the Torino Ranch. And you can see Lovell Summit Road ascending to the left from the ranch. Then Sexton Ridge leading to Griffith Peak, saddle to Harris Mountain, and then down the Wilson Ridge. From Harris Mountain, there's what we call the Wilson Ridge Southern High Point, and then Let me turn again. Okay, yeah. And then you can see um, the ridge over Rocky Gap Road, Red Rock Canyon, those cliffs. And then you see a little mound here. Yeah, a little rocky mound, bluff. It's actually huge. We were looking up at that when we were looking at the um, Switchback Ridge adventure. And you can see that on Las Vegas area trails. The very tip of Damsel Peak, also called Pincushion Peak, visible. And much more visible that I think we're going to see when we get to the next high point. Want to see where this connects with the Wilson Ridge. So we'll find out very soon. By the way, I mentioned that rocky mound over there. Yeah, that would be where you descend. I think there's a descent point on the far side of that mound, maybe the near side. I don't know. We have to get up there and look around at some point. But I think you can descend from that mound down into Rocky Gap Road, Red Rock Canyon. Okay, at this point, the Wilson Ridge hooks over to the southeast, or actually this is the approach ridge I'm on, not the Wilson Ridge. The Wilson Ridge is ahead. That is that ridge line you see. And so we hook over there, and then we've got an ascent. Usually those ascents are less dramatic than they look from here. And you can see around here, great view of Turtle Head Peak on the right, Damsel Peak on the left, White Rock Mountain between. So you can see we are above Red Rock Canyon, almost. Once we get on top of the Wilson Ridge, we'll be looking down on the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridge line, which is over Red Rock Canyon. And there you can see the mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And the one that I call the North Twin Pinnacle, right up here. So let's go ahead and descend a little bit. And then reascend and get to the summit of the Wilson Ridge. See what we can see from there. View should be pretty awesome. And I'm thinking the elevation up there is going to be around 8,200, 8,300 feet. Okay, that last stretch up to the Wilson Ridge is the most brush choked of this whole approach ridge. Give you an idea of what I'm facing here. There are clumps of trees and brush, following clumps of trees and brush all the way up here, and it's just a matter of weaving around and finding a way through, which is not necessarily that easy. In fact, look at this. Not going to go that way, but maybe this way. But then we've got a drop off over here. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge getting this last stretch up to the Wilson Ridge. So, onward. And by the way, always good to look backwards. See what you're going to be looking at as you're returning, so we can return down the same ridge. Although there's so many approach ridges here, any one would do, but this one's going to be the best. And so set your sights on this high point right between Griffith Peak to the left and Harris Mountain to the right. And then you take a left at that high point. We were there just a bit ago. And then continue down this approach ridge. Very good approach ridge, and it's exactly the one I was shooting for that I'd seen on the map. So that's good, but yeah, good luck getting up through all of this. Here's another one of those little depressions where an animal slept, and this time it looks like the footprints are not hooves, but rather claws. So that's really interesting. Yeah, it's been pretty brutal going through the brush that I've just gone through. There's an example right ahead. And I'm not seeing, there's a drop off on either side. This is a semi-narrow ridge choked with brush in the center. So not many choices, but there we are looking at the Wilson Ridge ahead. So let's continue on up. Okay, we are now much higher. Got to be within 200 feet of the Wilson Ridge. Anyway, we're looking back at the approach ridge we took. Very important to nail the location of this approach ridge. That's our return ticket. There you can see Lovell Canyon, Griffith Peak on the left, Harris Mountain on the right, and then here's a unique look at the Wilson Ridge going north. Definitely not the easy traverse there. And then here we are looking upward. The good news about this is there's less brush. I mean, that was really thick brush down below. But steeper, loose rock, not too bad though. And there's the Wilson Ridge looking north. Okay, we've made the Wilson Ridge line. Let's look around. There is the North Twin Pinnacle. Just beyond that, would be the mini Matterhorn Pinnacle. And you can see the cliffs in the area. Let's see if we can get a better look at them. We're right on the edge. Yeah, there you go. And then looking up in this direction, you can see the northern stretch of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, all the way from, Indecision Peak, way over there. Yeah, Indecision Peak, over to Mount Wilson, Rainbow Mountain, Bridge Mountain, the upper area above Buffalo Wall, then we've got the Calico Hills and Red Rock Canyon, there's Turtlehead Peak on the right, Damsel Peak, or Pincushion Peak on the left. In the foreground, White Rock Mountain. And then there's the La Madre Mountains ridgeline. Here's the continuation of the Wilson Ridge. Wow, does not look easy right here. A lot of descent, reascent. And then on over to the Rainbow Mountains, the Wilson Ridge southern high point. And then beyond that, the Wilson Ridge continues all the way up to Harris Mountain. Then over to Griffith Peak and down Sexton Ridge. And there you can see the winding path of Lovell Summit Road. Right down in this area. Too much glare on my screen, so I'm not sure I can nail that. Oh yeah, here we go. Lovell Summit Road. And that goes down to the high point on Lovell Canyon Road where Torino Ranch is, which you can't see right now. And so let's go ahead and pan out and get a 360 of all that I've just pointed out. Couple other points of interest here. There's Potosi Mountain. Below us, you can see the winding Rocky Gap Road. Up to its summit at the Bridge Mountain Trailhead, and then it goes down into Lovell Canyon. We're not going to get down there today, definitely. And then over this direction, we did not point out before, Las Vegas Strip. A lot of glare. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to nail that. Yeah, it's down there. You probably see it better than I can. I think I'm focused on it. And what else? Over in the distance is the Sheep Range. Very dim. So there you have it. Now we got to make a beeline back to Lovell Canyon Road. Do not want to be up on this ridge, all the brush, boulders, although it was fairly gradual up here. Very nice getting up the approach ridge until near the top where I hit all those walls of brush. But yeah, we got to get through all that. And probably 4 hours from now, it's going to be dark. So it may take all that time getting back down to the beast parked on Lovell Canyon Road. But what an awesome view from this point on the Wilson Ridge. And I can pretty much guarantee very few people have been up on this spot. And so you may never have seen this perspective of the wilderness from this point on the Wilson Ridge. You're seeing it now. Okay, down we go.